The second set in Magic the Gathering's Return to Ravnica block, and 60th expansion overall for the game, Gatecrash burst onto the scene on the 1st of February, 2013. The Marks, that's Rosewater and Gottlieb, co-led design, with Dave Humphries heading up development. Jeremy Jarvis was the set's art director. The set features a lot of carryover with its predecessor, Return to Ravnica, with its focus on the plane's two-colored guilds, multicolored themes, and hybrid mana. But unlike Return to Ravnica, Gatecrash focuses on 5 guilds not found in its predecessor: Red-White Boros Legion, Blue-Black House Dimir, Green-Red Gruul Clans, White-Black Orzhov Syndicate, and Blue-Green Simic Combine. As for story, Gatecrash represents the middle part of the overall Return to Ravnica main story, which we summarized in our Return to Ravnica video. But the block had a handful of side stories, including, just to pick a few, those that include the introduction of a new planeswalker, Domri Raid, why Gideon Jura was visiting the plane and how he worked alongside the Boros Legion while doing so, and every Magic player's totally lost homunculus, Fibble.
Domri Raid's story shows his ascension towards being a planeswalker, beginning when he was little more than a Gruul hoodlum with big aspirations. They are aspirations that would lead him to take part in something the Gruul call the Burying, which is a ritual during which a person strips away all attachments to Ravnican life, as the city is seen by Gruul shamans as a place that is a slave to rules and the destructor of nature. Those who endure the Burying are considered to have come back to the tribe reborn, clear of purpose, and ready to live life the Gruul way. That night, deep in the Utvara stomping grounds, the shamans escort Domri, whom had been prepared in burial garb, to a dark hole dug just for him. As he lay in his grave, he felt earth piled upon him as he was being buried alive. At first, he remained calm and kept his mind occupied, but as the hours passed, or was it minutes? Days? He had no way of knowing. Panic began to set in, and darker thoughts started to take hold. He began to think that he was really going to die there, alone, buried in the earth. He wanted to struggle, but found no give. Immobile in his earthen grave, he felt something new take hold. His spine burned, his head filled with light. He shot out into the multiverse. He felt new, like a sparkling jewel. It was nighttime when he finally made it back to his camp. He sulked in, convinced he had failed the test of the burying. When the shaman who oversaw the ritual found him, Domri expected expulsion, or worse. What he got, however, was a warm embrace. Domri felt a flood of emotion overtake his body, and he felt ready for any adventure that would come his way from then on.
In search of the pyromancer planeswalker Chandra Nalaar, with hopes of having her join the efforts against the Eldrazi on the plane of Zendikar, Gideon Jura found himself on the plane of Ravnica. Upon his arrival, though, he found his initial efforts to be fruitless at best. What he did discover, though, is an increasing amount of tension between the plane's guilds, including among the guildless, whom were becoming increasingly paranoid as they often found themselves caught in the crossfire. While battling some Rakdos cultists, Gideon caught the attention of the Boros Legion. Shortly thereafter, he was paid a visit by the Legion's guildmaster, Aurelia. Thinking he could be a strong weapon for the Legion, she offered him to lead one of their battalions and promised him the opportunity to lead more should he formally join their guild. While Gideon, who felt the Legion had the best opportunity to bring some form of peace to the realm, accepted Aurelia's offer to lead a battalion, he declined her offer to become a full-fledged member as he had duties elsewhere to attend to.
As for Fibble, he served the Azorius Senate and helped maintain the Magister's gardens. For the most part, he was left alone to tend to his duties. Keeping up the plants and keeping the area tidy was something he was quite content with. Of course, life has other plans. One day, an Azorius arrestor named Parisha took him along on a mission to apprehend a Rakdos criminal named Vadex Gore, whom had a rather deviant reputation. even for a member of the cult of Rakdos. Unbeknownst to the homunculus, he was used to be bait to lure the criminal out into the open. As expected, Gore took the bait. Thankfully for Fibble, Parisha was prepared and arrested the criminal cultist right on the spot. The mission of success, the Azorius Senate awarded Fibble with the possibility of his eventual decedents, should he ever have any, being allowed to petition the Senate to officially register the homunculus's heroic exploits upon his death.
Tesa Karlov, the first and only Grand Envoy for the Orzhov Syndicate, an official speaker and ambassador for the Guildmaster, the ghastly Obsidot, sits in her chair at Karlov Manor, deep in thought. They've ruled for far too long, she says silently to herself. She's had enough of the dead old men of the Obsidot. The Orzhov Guild must be reshaped into a power that Ravnica has never before seen. For what must have been the 100th time or more, she opens up the ancient tome that lay at her desk, the generational manifesto for the Orzhov's future. She's read it cover to cover, more times than she can count. The words within have had new meaning for her. One bit in particular stood out to her more than most. Freedom from the mortal connection to crude coinage and simple riches allows the members of the Obsidot to pursue true and holy power, unshackled by worldly concerns. So why do they still pursue the coin with as much fervor as ever? The author of the passage was unknown to most, but not all. The Orzhov aristocracy knew it was written by Tihana Jarek, who was tried by the Obsidot and put to death for it. Tesa knew she had to find Jarek's collection, which was hidden by the Guildmaster under strong magical seals. But still, she had to try. Not long before the running of Niv-Mizzet's implicit maze, she sends a message to a trusted and respected member of another of Ravnica's guilds. Not long after, Tajik, a knight and high-ranking guildmaster of the Boros Legion, sits in her parlor. Out of respect for his office and power, she gets right to the point. I would like to form an alliance with you, a special kind of alliance that requires absolute commitment and dedication. Tajik smiles, as if he had been expecting Tesa's request from the get-go. You want me to help you run the maze and steal the prize from the insatiable claws of Niv-Mizzet, he asks. No problem. No, Tesa replies. I want you to help me destroy the Obsidot.
And, as mentioned before, there are a number of other side stories, far more than we're going to cover here. Now, as for the set itself, Gatecrash is a large set consisting of 249 cards, which was a change from the usual block structure of having the second and third sets within a block be smaller, usually around 180 cards or so. Despite being a large set though, Gatecrash did not contain any basic lands. Instead, the land slot within booster packs was used to provide players with a higher percentage chance of getting dual-colored Guildgate lands as a means for easier color fixing. Continuing the block's guild-specific themes, each featured guild in Gatecrash had its own unique mechanic, keyword, or ability word associated with it. House Demir's is Cipher.
Dimir are the sneaky ones. We had some challenge with them. I think that the two hardest guilds for us to design this time were Dimir and Orzhov. I think Orzhov ended up being the hardest. But anyway, for Dimir, the way Cipher works is it goes on instants and sorceries, and when you cast the spell, you sort of encode it to a creature. For all intents and purposes, you put it underneath the creature. The idea is you're now attaching that spell to this creature. Then, whenever this creature deals combat damage to an opponent, that spell sort of goes off for free. The big challenge we had with Cipher was it was a very narrow band of abilities. And the reason for that is it has to be generally useful things. And in Blue and Black, there wasn't an infinite amount. Yeah, we could draw cards. Yeah, we could do discard. I mean, there were things we could do. But it ended up being very tight.
Blood Rush is unique to Gruul clans.
The Gruul philosophy and the red-green archetype in general it's kind of mid-range, aggressive mid-range. Just keep playing creatures, always use your mana, make bigger and bigger creatures, and just keep attacking. What Blood Rush is a mechanic that goes on creatures, and it allows you to discard the creature to basically giant growth the creature, if that makes sense. So if the creature was a 2/2, when you pay the mana and discard it, it grants the creature a +2/+2. If it was a 4/2, it grants +4/+2. The mechanic did a very good job of having that aggro quality we wanted for the Gruul, that sort of the mid-range aggro that we were looking for.
The Orzhov Syndicate have Extort.
So what Extort said is whenever you cast a spell, you can spend a white or a black mana. It was hybrid. You can spend a white or black to drain the opponent for 1. We decided that we really liked the flavor of this. I don't think we put it on a lot of white cards, but we put it on some white cards. And so it was definitely a more serious bend just because draining isn't white. And if you could have multiple Extorts out. So if I have more than one Extort out, that means for every, let's say I have 2 Extort out. That means every time I cast a spell, I can pay up to 2 mana to drain my opponent for 2. Extort is pretty powerful.
Battalion is the Boros Legion's new toy.
So Battalion was a creature mechanic, and it said whenever I attack with 2 or more creatures, looking back with 2020 hindsight, I think in retrospect we had wished we had done this +1 rather than this +2. This +2 works fine in limited, but it really, really had a hard time in constructed. It is just a lot to ask to have 3 creatures that you can attack with in constructed. So in retrospect, I think we kind of wish we had done this and another creature. So attack with 2 or more rather than attack with this +1 rather than this +2.
And the Simic Combine get Evolve.
The Simic had sort of this Dr. Moreau feel, like experimentation with animals and improving upon nature was what we always joked as the Simic line. So the way Evolve works in the set is whenever a creature with a higher power or toughness enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And the idea essentially is, as you are playing bigger things, this creature gets bigger.
Like Return to Ravnica, Gatecrash was available in 16-card booster packs, 6-card booster packs, a pair of event decks, 5 bi-colored intro packs, and a booster battle pack that contains 2 semi-randomized 22-card decks, 2 Gatecrash booster packs, and helpful information for beginners. Also, like Return to Ravnica, Gatecrash pre-release kits were split up between the set's 5 featured guilds, each containing a special, guild-specific, alternate art foil promo card. For Gatecrash, those pre-release promos are Foundry Champion for Boros, Consuming Aberration for Dimir, Rebel Hulk for Gruul, Treasury Troll for Orzhov, and Fathom Mage for Simic. As for the set's other promos, Game Day participants were provided a full art Zamek Guild Mage, with top 8 Game Day finishers also receiving a foil full art Firemane Avenger. Scourge Goliath was Gatecrash's release day Friday Night Magic promo. Gatecrash League participants were given a Soldier Creature token card. The set's Buy a Box promo was a Night Veil Spectre. As for non-promo cards worth a mention, Gatecrash has a handful, starting with the 5 Shockland reprints, 1 for each of the set's featured guilds: Breeding Pool, Godless Shrine, Sacred Foundry, Stomping Ground, and Watery Grave. There's also Biovisionary, an alternate win condition card. Boros Charm, a very popular inclusion in white-red modern burn decks. Cryptghast, a black mana acceleration creature. Enter the Infinite, a powerful, albeit expensive to cast, combo enabler. Hillkai Tyrant, another alternate win condition card. Legion Loyalist, an extremely common inclusion in modern 8-whack decks. Lord of the Void, a large and powerful demon that both technically mills cards from an opponent's deck into exile and, quite possibly, steals a creature from those exiled cards for you. And Thespian's Stage, a must-include in Legacy lands and Dark Depth strategies. The set also has a few cycles worth a mention. Primordials, which is a cycle of 5 7-costed avatar creatures that have an enter the battlefield ability that scales up depending on the number of opponents one has. Denzians, each of which have a triggered ability whenever you bring out a creature that matches its color. Land Auras, each of which grants its enchanted land an activated or triggered ability, and multicolored guild-specific X spells, which, as the category might suggest, are guild-colored spells that have an X in the casting cost. All are either sorceries or instants, save for the Simic-colored Nimbus Swimmer, which is a creature. Overall, and in hindsight, Gatecrash isn't a set that many Magic players would say was overly impressive, but it was a set Magic head designer Mark Rosewater says he learned a lot from.
I think Gatecrash was an interesting set in that it definitely taught me the valuableness of teamwork. It taught me sort of the value of returning the sets and how to work things in. So all in all, it was a pretty good, I mean, it wasn't a set where I had some of the major lessons I've had in other sets. But it definitely was something where I walked away much wiser than walking in. I think I did learn a decent number of things from it.
So what are your thoughts on Gatecrash? Please share them in the comments section. Thank you for watching. We have a tip jar on Patreon if you are feeling so inclined. Also, please remember to like this video and subscribe to Magic Untapped for more great Magic the Gathering content.